There's scary, there's terrifying, and then there's downright disturbing. And if you've outgrown mainstream horror films, well, I'm your guy. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Beyond the Gray Media. Josh here to ruin your day. Or maybe not. Maybe this is exactly what you need. Maybe you've been needing kind of a kick in the ass when it comes to wanting to watch extreme, disgusting, gross horror films. So if that's your bag, baby, but if you're not sure if that's your bag, boys, that's why we're here, okay? We are going to curate a starter pack, if you will, for truly disturbing horror that go beyond just mainstream jump scares and go a little bit into the transgressive, putting your full foot into the void, into the black abyss. And these are just 12 or 13 of films that I've got in my collection that I would say make a great starter pack. So however you found me, make sure you got some kernels and corn ready, maybe a little bit of Hawaiian punch to simulate blood, or even just a little glass of wine or a beer, because we're going to get into some of the most easily digestible. I'm just kidding. These movies are gross, and we're here to ruin your day. Thanks for being here. Our disturbing horror starter pack starts off with levels or phases, and phase one is the bleak and the real. And we're starting with Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer from 1986, a chilling look at a detached sociopath, kind of filmed like a documentary, but instead of a flashy slasher, if you will, it's grim, it's ugly, it's mean-spirited, it's a slice of life that takes that serial killer mythos and it gets rid of any glamour and instead makes you sit with it and becomes really just a great starting point for any disturbing horror extreme list. Instead of Texas Chainsaw, jump right in to Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Our second film in phase one of the bleak and the real is The Girl Next Door from 2007, and this is a sizable jump from Henry. A devastating exploration of neighborhood cruelty and groupthink. Based on Jack Ketchum's novel, it is profoundly difficult to watch because the monsters are ordinary suburbanites. This is an exercise in pure psychological torment, pure psychological and physical endurance. This is one hell of an intense horror film that takes a real piece of you every time you watch it. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying you gotta start somewhere, and The Girl Next Door is mean. Our third film in phase one is also from 2007, and that is the Poughkeepsie tapes, which is a deeply unsettling fake documentary look into a prolific killer's private archive. Relentless, degraded VHS aesthetic, it taps into that grim home video vibe, making the footage feel real, authentic, and unfucking comfortable. This is a film that is done so well with its fake documentary that even to this day, there are moments where you are just in pain for some of the victims in this film. It continues to have crazy rewatch value. If you're a true crime fan, if you're into murder mysteries, give the Poughkeepsie tapes a spin. The final film in phase one is another large jump in 2011's Megan is Missing. Let me give you the pitch. An internet safety public service announcement that devolves into an unforgettable ordeal. What starts off as a clunky look at early teens, 2000s internet culture shifts extremely brutally into a drawn-out, claustrophobic nightmare in its final act. If you are easily triggered by SA or things that can be of that disturbing nature, this is your trigger warning. There is scenes in this film that you will never get out of your head. There are things in buckets, there are things that happen. There is a 15-minute period where someone is forced to dig their own grave. It is extremely uncomfortable. It is a film that I don't care who you are, every kid that's on the internet probably needs to see this at some point. Viewer discretion, though, is advised. If you're ready, then I'm ready. Let's get into the next phase. We are talking about found footage and the grimy underground. We are going all the way back to 1980 with one of the most intense horror films I've ever seen, and we are talking about Cannibal Holocaust from 1980, the granddaddy of found footage and the ultimate video nasty. The director blurred the lines of reality so well, he was put on trial to prove his actors were still alive. Gun to my head when people say, what is one of the most shocking horror films you've ever seen? It's Cannibal Holocaust. I know there's animal stuff. I know there's all kinds of like horrible things that are no longer PC, but I still think this is an incredible movie within a movie that had a lot to say. Sure, there's blood and gore. Sure, there's tits and ass, but it is absolutely incredible and one of my favorite horror films, and I am not going to apologize for it. If you're going to be a fan of disturbing and extreme horror films, you better make sure Cannibal Holocaust finds your way on that list. Our second film in Phase 2 is a very, very reputable, even hated film for a lot of people in the found footage genre. We're going all the way back to 2001 with Fred Vogel's August Underground. A vile, ultra-realistic dive into the home videos of two sociopaths. It looks and feels exactly like a snuff film found unmarked in a just disgustingly dirty basement. Purely nihilistic, it's an exercise in depravity. It is one of the most intense films you are going to see. It has one of the craziest openings. Yeah, it's gross. Yeah, it's vile, and yeah, I still kind of love it. It needs to be on your list if you're going to be into the disturbing stuff. Our third film in Phase 2 goes back to 2004, which is a film that completely floored me. I was expecting this to be just a horrible movie. But horrible's kind of the name of the game when you get into these disturbing horror films. We are talking about, of course, Nick Palumbo's Murder, Set, Pieces. Sometimes a title should tell you exactly what you want to know. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? The Evil Dead. Murder, Set, Pieces. What do you think is going to happen? It's a sleazy, relentlessly nihilistic snapshot of an unhinged mind. Period. It's essentially just a hyper-violent, plotless tour through a Las Vegas photographer's depravity that revels in its own bad taste. And I'm telling you right now, man, this is actually one hell of a really, really, really well-made horror film. I think it gets it just gets a bad rap. And I actually had a great time watching. I thought that the gore was incredible. I thought that some of the set pieces themselves were some of the most vile and disgusting since maybe even necromantic. More on that later. I think that this thing is worthy of its reputation, and I actually really enjoyed my first time watch just a few months ago. Shout out to you, Murder, Set Pieces. Our final film rounding out Phase 2 is, of course, 1987's Necromantic, a grimy, deep dive into the ultimate taboo. If you're not aware of what that taboo is, it is someone who likes to have relations with bodies of the non-living variety, if you will. I can't pronounce his last name, but he created a I believe it's Budergarrett. I can never say it, man, but it is a zero budget shocker just about necrophilia. It's an incredibly bizarre, melancholic, romantically creepily decay in this profoundly uncomfortable way. I know that I just kind of stuttered over all of that, but I'm trying to find a good way to explain this film if you've never seen it. It's vile, it's disgusting, it's like home videos if you were going to go and steal something and have some sort of relationship with it, bring another partner into it. There's also animal cruelty in this thing. This is one vile, just foul, fucking crazy movie. I believe it's shot on 16mm, and that makes it just so much more graphic, so much more hardcore. And when I finally watched this thing on Blu-ray, man, it was such a jump in quality from the VHS I watched as a little kid. It is still shocking. It is still a lot for most people. And I know that it doesn't have a ton of gore, but the gore that is in there is so crude. It is so cheaply done that it adds this kind of nostalgia to it. And I mean, I'm not going to say I love it, but it is so well done, man. I continue to own it, and I fucking champion it, and I watch it. And Necromantic is the end of Phase 2. You're still with me. I knew you could do it. Welcome to Phase 3, which is bodily horror and human cruelty. Nothing sums that up more than 1988's Men Behind the Sun. This is a pretty simple movie with a heavy price. It is a grueling, historically rooted depiction of medical experiments and medical atrocities. This infamous Category 3 film pulls no punches in its portrayal of the Japan Unit 731 during World War II, using raw shock tactics to ensure history is never sanitized. This film is going to upset a lot of people. I know it still upsets me. This has just some of the craziest things I've ever seen in a movie, period. Not only that, but I feel like some people consider this a drama. I don't know about thriller, because the stuff that is in this film is so absolutely horrific. There is a scene where someone is just heated from the inside until their guts just explode. They are frozen outside and they crack their arms off. They're stuffed with, infants and newborn stuff, and just the cruelest, just the meanest timeline you can imagine back then. Atrocities of war and Men Behind the Sun. And I'm telling you right now, this massacre video just wrecked me, and it is definitely worthy of being the beginning of Phase 3, Men Behind the Sun. The second film in Phase 3 is a film that completely also destroyed me, that just ruined my day, similar to Cannibal from Marian, however you want to say his name. I know he changes it based on how crazy, just kind of blitzkrieg German films that he makes. We are talking about 2014's Carcinoma. This is an uncompromising, medically literal descent into bodily decay. Okay, it follows one man that, you guessed it, decides not to pay attention to what's happening with his body, and a cancer continuously just erodes and causes just the most disgusting and uncomfortable scenes I've ever seen. Focuses on unsimulated physical rot and the isolation that you would feel if you had that terminal illness. It is one of the most uniquely punishing watches in extreme cinema that I've ever had, and I've seen Cannibal, and I thought Cannibal was horrific. Also kind of like crazy amazing in the same way. Again, this is going to be similar to Melancholy the Angel with the animal stuff. This has got a ton of nastiness and just really gross out horror. A lot of religious dogma as well. Carcinoma is horrific. The last film in Phase 3 really probably could have been included all the way up into Phase 1, depending on what shocks you, depending on what really kind of ruins your day. We are talking about a coming-of-age story from 2008 in Dead Girl. Now, just like I said, coming-of-age story poisoned by toxic masculinity. This is hide and go, insert the R word. One of the most intense horror. I mean, in a way it's a zombie film. In a way it's one of the most shocking films, though, for a lot of people. This is going to piss off most people and really just ruin your Thanksgiving dinner. When two high school students, two outcasts really, find an undead woman chained up in an abandoned asylum, they keep her as their captive plaything, and they do things that are unspeakable to this person, to this girl, to this thing. And if you're, compared to some of the other films that we've talked about, this one actually has a pretty good resolution where there's a comeuppance at the end, but again, strong trigger warning, strong SA violence, all kinds of nasty, disgusting stuff is going to happen in Dead Girl. But I do think it's a really well-made film, and I continue to champion it, even though it's going to upset most people. We've made it, my friends, to the final phase in the disturbing horror starter pack, the final bosses of extremity. The first film, one of the hardest films for me to watch to this day, is Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom from 1975. This film is an exhausting, claustrophobic critique of absolute power, of fascism, really. Pier Paolo Pasolini's final work is one that is bleak. It's a systematic degradation of the human body and the human spirit. There are things so disgusting, so vile in this movie, I dare not speak them. But if you're not a big fan of watching humans eat excrement, you're going to want to stay away from this film. In the same breath, you can have these crazy paintings and stills of Italy and just like the war, World War II, just amazing footage buried in just some of the most absolutely punishing ways of grooming and child abuse, just absolutely horrific behavior and a really, really hard film to get into and to recommend to people. It stays on the shelf. I own it because sometimes it's hard to find. Unless you're a Criterion Collection fan, then Salo will be on your list. Not for the faint of heart. Our second film of Phase 4 comes at us from 2008 that I actually just think is a really amazing film, and that is, of course, the original, never duplicated or replicated, mind you, Martyrs, the undisputed peak of the new French extremity movement. Period. End of fucking list. Martyrs is a punishing endurance test that pushes well beyond most standard gore that you're going to be into. It pushes it past most bounds of any disrespect, any just respectful person. It is just deeply philosophical, deeply emotionally scarring, deeply emotionally devastating. One of my favorite horror films ever, a film that takes a piece of me every time that I watch it. If people want to know kind of like what I'm into and how far I like to go with the horror genre, and I don't think Martyrs is the most extreme film you're going to see, I just think it's one of the best extreme films you're going to see. There's much worse than this. I think this is done absolutely beautifully. Somehow through pain comes pleasure, comes enlightenment, comes spirituality, and this is one of my favorite horror films. It has crazy rewatch value because it takes a piece of you, man. That initial breakfast scene, some of the stuff that happens when they're just being attacked by that demon, by that ghost, to being tortured, bound up. Absolute trigger warning for anyone who has a fan of anybody they care about. Do not let them watch this movie. Know what you're getting into, because this will definitely ruin just about everybody's good time. This is not an Easter dinner, Easter supper kind of film. This is something you put on when you want to go to the extreme, when you want to see how much you can take. That's what Martyrs brings to the table. Martyrs fucking rocks. Period. I think a lot of people, a lot of good respecting people would probably put 2010's A Serbian Film as the most extreme film they have ever seen. It is at the top of most people's extreme, disturbing horror films of all time. Now, I know there's Philosophy of a Knife, there's Snuff 102, there's a lot of bottom dweller stuff, there's just straight up snuff videos that we've got in the room that we're not going to bring out here because there's not a lot of artistic value to them. However, I am not one of those people. I feel like I have seen worse things in my life, unfortunately, than this film. But if you don't know what it's about, this is a zenith of modern shock value and transgressive cinema. It was created as an abrasive allegory for the exploitation of the director's home country, Serbia, by methodically crossing every conceivable boundary of cinematic taste. A Serbian film has one of the most shocking images I've ever seen, with the newborn stuff in there, right? There's all kinds of things having to do with the family. Ingestuous, I will say, horrific essay, just complete unraveling of a culture, of a man. And I do agree that I'm not trying to downplay it. This movie ruined me when I watched it. It continues to. But there's one film that's more intense, and we're going to talk about that next. Dollars to Donuts, a Serbian film will fuck you up. For my money, the most disturbing disturbing starter pack film that I've seen, and I've seen a lot, and I've got a lot of other ones in there, but we had to kind of like make this the starter pack, is 2017's Trauma. Okay? This is a film that demands your undivided attention. This is a vicious modern shocker tackling political history and extreme motherfucking violence. It uses this weird legacy of the crime, the dictatorship is the backdrop for this kind of like unforgivable gauntlet of violence. This has just as intense scenes as a Serbian film. In the opening, right? The opening 15 minutes has some of the most disgusting sounds I've ever heard in a horror film. Some of the most brutal, vicious on-screen violence, some of the most intense sexual, just disgusting things that happen to this poor group of girls. It's like a complete mob crime, Yakuza, whatever you want to think about, cartel horror film ever. And I think that it deserves to be seen for people that are fans of extreme violence. And that sounds fucked up to say it like that, but this film is just really, really well made. And it took a complete piece of me, and I'd never seen it till a couple of years ago. And I think Trauma is the nastiest, best, most disturbing horror film on this list. Guys. Oh, I'm sweating. I pulled out 25 films, but we got through a good solid chunk of some. I actually think these are mostly really good movies. And I think if you're going to get into extreme horror and extreme disturbing horror, this is a great starter pack for you guys that want to dip your toes in. We could have started with, like stuff like Pieces or The Prowler or fucking, Maniac, some Texas Chains. We could have really started off small, but I wanted you to a lot of people, when they talk about some of these things, these are fabled, very, very highly sought after, highly just sometimes, for me, even collectible horror films, a lot of people detest. And so that's why we're championing them tonight. And I hope that you guys had a great time. If you want to see part 2, hopefully you do. Let me know in the comments. Until next time, comment, subscribe, talk some shit down there. I know there's no Vomit Gore trilogy. I know there's no, Snuff. There's a ton of other just disgusting banned from TV stuff that I have in there. There's a bunch of Lucifer Valentine stuff. I didn't want to bring it out here. I wanted to give this as the starter pack. Until next time, I love you so much. Take care. Cheers.